Austin Grossman attempts to dissect superheroes and subvert the genre. I discuss this and more on today's episode. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. Today I want to talk about a book that I read, one that focuses on superheroes, supervillains, and such things. I am referring to Soon I Will Be Invincible by Austin Grossman, which was published in 2007. For those who don't know, Austin Grossman is a white American writer who has been writing for the past 20 plus years, not only for books but also for video games. I believe he wrote the stories for System Shock as well as the Dishonored games, which were well regarded or considered cult classics at this point. In addition to that, he's also written a few books and short stories here and there. People seem to enjoy his books, but critics have noted that he has a tendency to sort of paint beautiful pictures but not put anything in those pictures. Like the plot is always thin, which I found in this book to be true. It seems to be a criticism of his other books, and I'll get to that more in the analysis section. Pretty interesting writer with a few problems, and I had a problem with this book. I thought it was well written, and I'll get to that in the analysis section, but this is just to say that I'm probably going to spoil the book in the summary. I'm not going to recommend it, unfortunately, so if you want to read it, go out and read it, but I don't encourage you to do that. But I'll also spoil it in the analysis section as well. So without further ado, let's talk about Soon I Will Be Invincible. I will do a summary analysis and we will move on from there. So Soon I Will Be Invincible, which is a fun title, focuses on both Dr. Impossible and Fatale. Dr. Impossible is an evil super scientist currently locked in prison for one of his many attempts to take over or end the world in some capacity. And it also focuses on Fatale, who is a new superhero addition to the Champions, the new Champions, which is a sort of like the Avengers or the Justice League of this world, filled with other superhero types. Fatale is a cyborg, doesn't really understand her origins all that well, but she's seen as a technical member of the team. At the beginning of the book, we find out that Dr. Impossible is seeking to escape so that he can enact one of his other plans, and he's probably going to come up against his nemesis, Corefire, who is a superhero or Superman type, and Dr. Impossible can't really seem to defeat him. But the Champions are seeking Corefire because he has gone missing for unknown reasons, and they think that Dr. Impossible has something to do that. And in fact, at this point, Dr. Impossible manages to escape, and the Champions go looking for him. We see that Dr. Impossible is enacting some kind of grand plan, reaching out to other villains for various equipment and technology, and even looking in a hidden section of a library to find a book that was written by a fellow villain years ago, who something about like tactical climatology, hoping to control the weather of the world. We also learn about Dr. Impossible's past, his origins, his connection to Corefire, in those origins, and the women that he's loved as well, but that he hasn't felt like the world has really given him a fair chance at anything. The Champions, meanwhile, go investigate Dr. Impossible's secret island lair. He's not there, and they don't really have any answers. But at this point, when they get back, Dr. Impossible is actually sneaking through their lair, the Champions' sort of hideout, stealing information and whatnot. But before they can find out that he's there, they discover a news report where Corefire has been reported to be dead. And so there's a funeral held. Dr. Impossible is wearing a disguise and paying his respects. He also learns that One of the champions is Lily, his ex-girlfriend, whose origin is that she's from the future and was acting as a villain in some capacity before she joined the side of good. And she catches up to Dr. Impossible but doesn't turn him in. But one of the other members of the champions finds him and tries to fight him, and some of the other members of the champions show up, but Dr. Impossible manages to defeat them. It turns out that they're really no match without Corefire, who was their strongman of the team. At this point, Dr. Impossible returns to his island to enact his plan, which is to lower global temperatures by knocking the moon out of orbit and whatnot, and this will allow him to take control of the world. The champions try to attack him, but they get captured, and at this point, Corefire returns and kind of reveals that this was all a ruse to draw Dr. Impossible out, which doesn't really make sense because Dr. Impossible was in jail when Corefire went missing, so what is the point? But Dr. Impossible is able to hold Corefire back with the help of a magical hammer that he got from another supervillain who ended up dying. But despite the fact that it looks like Dr. Impossible is going to win, Lily shows up, reveals that she's actually Erica, a former love of both Corefire and Dr. Impossible. She faked her entire origin story because of exposure to some sort of magical chemical of some kind, and she manages to stop Dr. Impossible because it turns out the hammer he's using was going to create a weird type of cancer in the future, and she saw that future and decided to stop it, or something like that. And then the champions managed to finally defeat Dr. Impossible, and he is arrested. Fatale, meanwhile, struggles to understand her place in the team. We see that happening throughout the story. She also learns that her origins are that she was created in one of Dr. Impossible's plans, but just sort of discarded on the side because he got arrested or something. And she smacks Dr. Impossible and decides to leave the team at that point to sort of forge her own identity. And then as the story comes to a close, it focuses on Dr. Impossible, and he reveals that he has another plan to escape, noting that he will soon be invincible, which is the title of the story, and that's where it ends there. In terms of analysis, this book had a lot of potential that Austin Grossman squandered. It seems like he's going to subvert the expectations of the genre, but then he ends up falling right into it, and it creates a book that feels like it has a lot of potential until it suddenly doesn't, until it just sort of flounders at the last third of the book, unfortunately. But one of the themes that Grossman is utilizing here, or one of the things he does, is he explores heroes and villains. Grossman uses the story to analyze the heroes and villains that we have written tons and tons of stories about. Many of these characters are just sort of stand-ins for other characters. Like Corefire is Superman. I think there's a Wolf or something that is just Batman. Dr. Impossible is like Lex Luthor. The Pharaoh is, I don't know, some similar villain of some sort. But they're all stand-ins for various other heroes and villains. So it's an opportunity to sort of dissect that apart and understand more about what a hero is and what a villain is. Dr. Impossible in this story suggests that villains are broken individuals. Like the world can be a cruel place, that villains never really had a chance. Maybe their intelligence or their upbringing made things difficult for them, and so they decided to enact vengeance on the world. You see that particularly when he's talking about a time he was in Thailand participating in a secret underground fighting ring for villains and heroes alike, and how they all seem to be feel connected, but at the same time they all had something they were trying to prove to the world, and it led them on a destructive path. And it's very interesting. It kind of suggests that maybe he's going to reveal that maybe Dr. Impossible is not the villain that we think he is, that there's something more complex to him. And that is especially true when he starts talking about loneliness and other things like that. Allow me to read you an interesting quote from this. It would make me one of them. I knew that when I got my powers, but really I knew it before then. I learned it as a child on my first day of school on the warm, rainy streets of Bangkok and in college. If you're different, you always know it, and you can't fix it, even if you want to. What do you do when you find out your heart is the wrong kind? You take what you're given and be the hero you can be. Hero to your own cold, inverted heart. Suggesting that, I like Dr. Impossible's like evil nature is stemming from his loneliness, and like he's different from others, so, and like he wasn't given the opportunity that Corefire was, or Damsel, one of the other heroes in the story, noting that they all went to the same college, the same school, but they kind of excluded him in a number of ways, and so like he wasn't given those same opportunities, and it suggests that those heroes can be cold and flawed as well, and it's really touching, and it kind of adds to Dr. Impossible and makes you want to root for him, but at the same time, it does suggest that heroes are not so noble. They're selfish and egotistical. They're offered a lot of sponsorships and other sort of deals, which suggests that maybe they're not in this totally for the nobility of like doing great things for humanity, that they're in it for themselves as well, the sound of applause and things like that. Sometimes they barely win. They're not as strong as they claim to be, and they often lie about their own origins. That's what Fatale kind of finds out. She hears these origins of certain characters, and she's like, that doesn't exactly make sense. It sounds like someone's pumping up the numbers to make themselves more powerful or more mysterious, maybe so that nobody realizes how common superheroes can be, that it's just a simple experiment and you've created another Superman or something like that. So I do think it's interesting how they lie about their origins. Many of them are like on special chemicals created by the government or government operatives themselves, which throws into question whether they're doing things for the greater good or doing things for the government. And you can see here that there is an attempt at inversion of the superhero tropes, where superheroes are not as noble and villains have some sympathy. But I do think the ending kind of negates the what Grossman is trying to do here, because at the end of the story, Dr. Impossible just tries to blow up the world yet again. He's not working towards anything, and Corefire shows up and saves the day and reveals that it was all a ruse to draw Dr. Impossible out, and it feels like it's being played for straight. And if that's the case, what was all of this for? It's interesting setup, it's interesting writing, but again, if you're not working towards anything in this writing, then it doesn't really feel like any of it serves a purpose. And again, maybe some writing doesn't really need to serve a purpose. Maybe it can just be beautiful for beautiful sake, but there's an intent there in trying to subvert, and then he plays it straight in the end, and I feel like that undermines the story that Grossman is trying to tell. Another place where that very thing that I just described happens is when Grossman is talking about the idea of the team. The champions are similar to other comic book teams, so you have the Justice League, the Avengers, the New Avengers, a wide variety of superhero team-ups, and there's the idea that those teams are heroic and noble, and that they're fighting for a common cause and nothing can really stop them. But the champions are dealing with some difficulties because they have real problems, and they have trust issues. Like Damsel and Wolf were engaged at one point, or were married, and they got divorced, and things didn't work out. And then Fatale doesn't really trust some of their team members because they feel like they're lying to her, and other team members can't really trust Fatale because they don't really know what her origins are. And so this creates real problematic social dynamics amongst the characters. How can they work well as a team if they can't really trust each other in that way? And Fatale even suggests that there was never really any cohesion, that these people were just together because they were heroes, that's what they needed to be, that they needed some common unity in order to fight off these baddies, that there was no sense of teamwork. She notes that when she's watching videos of the champions working in the past, and notes that the champions like they're at one point they stop looking like their team, and she goes back and rewinds and sees that might actually be happening sooner. So there might be some like hidden motives, hidden anger or frustration amongst team members that really prevent them from working together. And so you would think that, oh, well, maybe the message is that they have to learn to work together, which I think the ending kind of negates all of this in the same way, because the team goes from struggling to work towards a common cause and struggling to understand one another and defeat Dr. Impossible to getting captured and then being like, oh, well, we can work this out right now. It feels a little too quick, a little too sudden. And like the story is also kind of based on the fact that is Corefire the main part of the team and everyone else is just a hanger on. But then Corefire just returns, so they never really have to answer that question. So again, it undermines what Austin Grossman is trying to do by just making everything work out really quick. There's no interesting resolution to this. It's just quick, just wave of the hand, and that feels like bad writing to me. I will say there is good world building here. Austin Grossman writes wonderful prose. It makes me like it makes this world feel alive, like the characters' backstories, and it feels very similar to comic books, but it feels very lively, especially when he's doing writing rather than the visual representation of all of that. So I do have to give Grossman credit for that. However, there's just so many flaws in this story. Corefire just comes back, which never really makes sense. Why does he have to fake his death? Because Dr. Impossible doesn't escape until after he fakes his death. So I don't really get why Dr. Impossible, or like why Corefire would need to fake his death. It doesn't make sense story-wise. And I think it sort of undermines the emotional heart of the story by just having Corefire come back. Like, that seems like a sequel type story maybe, whereas any emotion that you brought up in these members of the Champions having to sort of band together and understand their place within the team is kind of undermined by all of that. I just feel it's a weak sort of way to resolve many of the problems. And so there's just massive plot holes for the already thin plot where a lot doesn't really happen. Dr. Impossible escapes, he grabs some equipment, and then he enacts his plan while the Champions do vague things in the background. A lot of the story is just nothing. Characters thinking about the past. So, I mean, if you're interested in that world building, there's plenty here for you. But if you're interested in actual story of actual events taking place and moving forward, like the ideas and themes that Grossman is trying to work on, you're not really going to get any of that here. There's just a lot of repetitive storytelling with characters recalling events they've already told us, and like Fatale talks about something, and then Dr. Impossible talks about something, and if Grossman was trying to sort of add context or like recontextualize what the thing they just told us, that would be interesting and maybe necessary in the story, but I don't think Grossman is really doing that, or if he is trying to, he's not doing it successfully. So ultimately the story really suffers from this repetitive storytelling, from the bad plot holes, and even the inability to really maximize on the themes that Grossman is trying to write. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Soon I Will Be Invincible by Austin Grossman. A bad story. It's a story that has a lot of potential. I can see a way in which this could be transformative, fascinating, and ahead of its time too, because this was written in 2007 before you saw the recent craze in superheroes. I believe Iron Man would come out and the Marvel Cinematic Universe wouldn't be started until 2008 or 2009. So in 2007, there's plenty opportunity to sort of reinvent the genre, create something new, and Grossman doesn't manage to do that, unfortunately, which is unfortunate because I was really hoping to enjoy this. If you have any thoughts on it, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Maybe you liked it more than me. Let's have a discussion about this. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this book or this author if they don't already know. Also join the Discord if you want to have further conversations about books, movies, TV, pop culture, things like that. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and invincible travels. Farewell.